So here at 4141 Design, they've done something completely different than any other place in Miami, which is they've integrated art into every aspect of the living experience. So we're in the Arc Linea kitchen right here. Oftentimes it's said that 80% of people's waking time is spent in either the kitchen, okay, or the bathroom, all right, and yet in many places there's no art in either one of those places. And now today's open living, what we've got here at Arc Linea here is a 4-foot by 24-foot quadriptych that has integrated art into a massive kitchen. And it's acting as a huge differentiator because it infiltrates the kitchen designer and buyer's mind that they need to think about art in a living experience.
In a real sense of reality, in an absolute sense of reality.
As opposed to doing it afterwards, they think about it during the process of design. I was speaking with Anthony today, and I'm just so captivated by this. He's writing a book called Big Art. And what's happening is art is starting to be integrated into every decision that we make in every part of our lives.
It's dominating the upper end of the culture. It's taken over from writing, it's taken over from movies.
And so now we're talking about changing the linear sequence in which art is introduced to the design process from the tail end process when the house is designed, the furniture is designed and put in the house, okay, now call the art designer and what are we going to do for the art, to shoving the art process all the way back to the building design and to the functional design within the house.
Well, you know, Frank Lloyd Wright had a great philosophy. This is, you don't just put bricks and mortar together, you actually design the furniture. You know what the painting is going to go on the wall. Johnson, the same thing with the glass house. He said, I know exactly how this is going to work. It's a perfect integration, a kind of a woven between architecture, design, painting, a kitchen, and in his case, everything, of course, was open. But, you know, there have been pioneers that have been, you know, kind of preaching the gospel of this incorporation of art and design and functionality and utilitarianism, and so I feel that coming as well, absolutely, especially
here. It began with
here.
the aesthetic movement in the 1880s. Mm-hmm. It began with Oscar Wilde and all those people. Mm-hmm. Herbert Reed, the 1920s, the 1930s. In fact, art and design separated a bit when the Expressionism, back in the 50s and 60s, if someone was interested in art, they would also have a Barcelona chair, they would also have good design around. With the rise of the artist as hero, suddenly all that split up a bit. They're now coming together again.
Yeah, well, I think it's an exciting movement, and I think that there's been a very big response to this at the user and at the buying level.
It's really the narrative about how the art world of the tiny avant-gardes has exploded. It now, real estate people talk about selling masterpiece apartments. People talk about curating their lives for Facebook. You know, art language has taken over, and it's really, we've seen the other competitive forms. Movies used to be the major dominant visual form in the culture. Not any longer. I mean, Netflix does a good job, but basically art is more dominant than movies, in my opinion, now.
How does big art relate to home design and furnishings?
Well, first, the scale of the homes are growing, especially in the market I'm in, which is the very high-end market. And as you see in this showroom, which is a representation of a home, the scale of the walls are large. And even here, I have a 12-foot ceiling. I have homes we're doing on the Venetian Islands. We have 20-foot ceilings. Mm-hmm. And scale is important to draw the attention to the work. And I'll be frank, you know, a lot of my clients, they are sophisticated people, but they're certainly not art aficionados. So scale also, they relate to it that way, the art that also adds significance to them. And you know, everything's valid to that person. And myself included, I do design and things, but I only love art. I'm not an art expert. I don't know the history well, but I've designed museums like the De La Cruz collection near here. That's a 30,000 square foot museum. But I can only do that to rely on work when I collaborate with art specialists. Mm-hmm. So again, from my point of view of the home, big art is significant because to balance out the strong kitchen and most importantly the vast space, and it's important in these big rooms you have a lot of white space, which is important, but it's a lot, so it's great to have that relationship with art. And if I want to say the word curation, yes, has entered my world very much. Like, for example, last night we had a guest speaker. He's an architect and a curator of architecture. And he's fairly well known, Terence Riley. He was speaking here last night about our new furniture collections in Alta, but there's a project here in the design district, this parking garage near here, and it's 4 architects curated by Terence Riley. He brought them together. So yes, that vocabulary has entered my world where it was not before.
Yeah.
And big art is not necessarily in terms of the perspective or the size, but also the importance of it in our society.
Like big pharma or big anything, it's big in the culture, size, how large it is in the culture. I mean, in the 60s, rock was huge. People respected it. It was like poetry. Okay, it's great, let them do it, But now it's enormous. It's much bigger than the rock, as an economic force.
And continuing to grow?
Absolutely, yeah.